The MPPT charge controllers, those are more efficient, they're bigger, and way more expensive. They're what converts the high voltage coming from the panels to the battery charge capability of your different types of batteries. Then you're going to have a distribution module, bus bar system, so you can connect everything to that with your fuses or breakers. And then you have your batteries. That's what stores the power, especially for nighttime use. There is lead batteries and there's lithium batteries. There's some new technology that's coming online, but isn't out and readily available yet. So mainly we're dealing with either lithium batteries or lead acid batteries. There's AGM, deep cycle, flooded lead acid batteries that are deep cycles. Do not use starter batteries. They're designed to start the vehicle, put out that kind of power, and then the alternators to charge them right back up. If you draw them down below 11 volts, they will fry. All lead acid batteries will do that. Lithium, there's lithium ion batteries. Your Jackeries use those. I don't recommend them. They're only about 350 charge cycles for their lifespan. What most everyone is going to is a lithium iron phosphate battery. They go anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 cycles for their lifespan. I'm getting them now to where those are for a 12 volt, 100 amp battery. I'm finding them for $220. Last year they were at least $350. So they've come way down. So compared to an AGM, that's a 100 amp battery, 12 volt, that you can only use 50% of it. They are running somewhere around almost $200 for those batteries. So you don't have, there's no real reason to do that. Lithium batteries cannot be charged like lead acid batteries. You have to have charge controllers. If you're going to convert an RV over from AGM, you have to disconnect your charger, your converter in your coach, and you have to disconnect your alternator charging from the engine. It will fry your alternator if you do not disconnect that feature and put a DC to DC converter in there. Those are the storage facilities. You have inverters that take your DC power and convert it to AC power. Inverters come in two flavors. One is a modified sine wave that's not recommended. They're cheaper. The better one is a pure sine wave inverter. They're more expensive, but they tend not to fry electronics and motors. On inverters, it's based upon the voltage of the battery bank and how many watts you want. Inverters, you should be going for the biggest inverter that you are going to go to, because it's buy once, cry once. If you buy a smaller one and go to sell it, you're probably not even going to get 50% of what you paid for it. So the old adage, buy once, cry once. They're also based on the battery voltage, so you can't transfer them from a 12 volt to a 24 volt system. Batteries can be put together in 12, 24, and 48 volt is the typical voltages. On 48 volt, it is over the 30 volt for safety. It is potentially lethal if you cross those on 48 volts, so I don't recommend them for mobile installations. If you're going to do an off-grid house, they're really good because they're really efficient on inverting to AC. Typically, we try to run everything on DC, like our compressor fridges, our fans, our lights, because it's more efficient. The inverters are going to take at least 10% of the power to invert to AC. So I've had people who have put an inverter in, hooked up their fridge, a DC powered fridge, and one of them was a 100 amp battery, and they were at 75% the next morning. I'm sorry, 75% drawdown on that battery because they were converting to AC and then converting back down to DC. So they're losing 20% on that system. We switched it over the next morning. She had 95% of her power from a full battery. So big difference. There's all-in-ones. These are a lot of times referred to as Jackeries is the brand name, or solar generators. There's a red one here. They're all-in-one. They're designed to be put into a rig for the weekend warrior. They primarily convert everything to AC, losing the power in the process, 10%. In smaller rigs, I like them. You get a minivan or an SUV, an EB70 or a AC 130 of the blue Yetis is about the size I want. Anything bigger, you're still limited to 10 amps at 12 volts plug-in. Everything else is AC. And so even the really big units, they're very small amperage coming off on the DC. So you're losing a lot of power converting them. Plus, they're about twice the price of an installed unit, an installed solar system. Wiring. I use marine grade wiring. It's a very finely strand. It will move, it will twist with your rig. You put in the thick stranded wires that you buy at Home Depot, or the Romex wire for your AC, and it will break. If you have a rig that has Romex installed on the AC side, be aware of that. When you start having problems, you plug in something and it's not working, it's making noises, or it's not turning on right, or something's not working, more than likely one of those wires is broken and is sitting there arcing and not making a connection properly. You'll have to take the plug out and the recep off the wall and check to make sure all the wires are still connected and not broken. Same thing with your distribution panel. So those are the things that I do. Is I go in for marine grade wire or welding cable, high grade, very fine stranded, can move. We want to crimp those connections. We do not want to use solder. Solder will heat up, start melting, increase the resistance, and you will continuously get as hotter and hotter it gets, the more resistance, the more heat, and a potential fire. So we are doing a cold compression weld on those lugs. If you buy an inverter, replace the cables. They're typically aluminum or copper cladded aluminum with lugs that are printed out or cut out of a single sheet of copper. And the problem is they will not hold. When you do a crimp on them, they will loosen up over time and they will start having problems. So also the cables are too small. If you want to do the installs, I recommend going to Blue Sea Systems and download their app on the cable length app. It will tell you, you put in your information, it will tell you what size cable to run on what voltage and amperage, length of time, and length of cable. Because DC is not like AC. The longer your cable, the bigger the cable has to be to run the same amperage. There's a formula, amps times volts equals watts. This is a very important formula. Solar panels are done in watts. Batteries are typically done in amps and volts. So when you're talking to someone, you have to understand that if they give you a wattage, if you want the amperage, you have to tell them another thing. They need a voltage to be able to tell what the amperage is. And you have to be able to work that formula. So it's amps times volts equals watts. To get amps or volts, you take watts divided by the one and gives you the other. That's how you translate the formula.